Each year, athletes from across the globe converge on Haines City, Florida, test the limits of their bodies and the resilience of their spirits at Ironman Florida 70.3. This documentary invites you behind the scenes of an athlete's return to triathlon after a forced 4-year hiatus, a story of grit, ambition, and unwavering dedication. From early morning swims to relentless training rides beneath the hot and humid summer sun and pounding footfalls on winding roads, we will witness the evolution of a competitor with a humble and grateful heart striving for redemption. But this is more than a race. It is a voyage through adversity and triumph. Through moments of doubt and bursts of inspiration, there will be setbacks and surprises, victories large and small, and the discovery of the true meaning of perseverance. Join us as we chronicle the milestones and missteps, the sweat and celebration culminating in one unforgettable day. This will not only be a tale of athletic determination, but a portrait of the human spirit, undaunted, unbreakable, and ever reaching for the extraordinary. Welcome to Ironman Florida 70.3, an endurance athlete's journey. Welcome, everyone, to Ironman Florida 70.3, an endurance athlete's journey. I'm your host, Coach Justin. I'm head coach and owner of Tabula Rasa Racing. This is the final video of the 16-week prep for Ironman Florida 70.3. The race was December 14th of 2025. Today is December 21st of 2025, and I'm coming to you with the final video, which is the race recap and my final thoughts on this entire process and this journey of going through the preparation for Ironman Florida, the half Ironman. So I've needed this time to kind of sit and process how the race went. I'm glad I took the week. I wrote my race report just over the span of 2 days right after the race. I didn't have a whole lot to do at that time, so I just went ahead and just put together my report. If you're interested in seeing it, I will host the report on the Tabula Rasa Racing website. So if you go to the Ironman Florida 70.3 page and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a series of downloadable PDFs. All of those PDFs are the weekly workouts that I did for this preparation, but you'll also see race report, Coach Justin's race report or something like that. It will be hosted there, so you can download it. You can see the full analysis of how the race went, my preparation for it, some of my thoughts on each segment of the race, including some overall analysis on the preparation for it. But you can download that and you can check it out if you're interested. It's a pretty thorough report. It'll go through all of my goals and everything else. So let's dive right on in. So this was my A race. If you go back to the very first episode on how I got into this race, I'll just give a quick little summary in case you have not seen that episode. I had signed up for a relay team for Ironman Chattanooga 70.3 back in May earlier this year. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to do it or not, or if I was going to be fit enough to do it, but lo and behold, I think my training was going well, so I reached back out to my friend and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. We drove down to Chattanooga, which is about a 10-hour drive from where we live, and the day that we were going in to pick up our packets, they sent out the message that the swim was canceled. I wasn't quite sure what it was that I was going to do while I was there, so I just supported my teammates as best as I can and spectated the race and cheered for friends and teammates. But it wasn't until July that Ironman reached out and said, we know that the race didn't go as planned, so here's the code for a free race registration for any North American race in 2025 for 70.3. Enjoy. So here I am. I signed up. I was not interested in a 70.3 this year. I was honestly afraid to do it. This is my 9th half Ironman, so I'd done 8 before, knew what to expect, but I'm coming back from a 4-year break in the sport recovering from surgeries in my shoulder and my elbow. And the training that I had done for this year was just planned for a sprint and a couple sprints and an Olympic. There was no plans for a half. But I felt drawn, and I felt like I was telling me that this was a race that I was supposed to do. So I was honestly scared to sign up for it because I was afraid of failing. I had done 8 before. Every single one of them has always been kind of a struggle. So I was honestly really afraid to toe the line again, saying, if I come back now when I'm not really, or I don't feel like I'm ready, what is that going to do to my confidence in going forward and actually when I feel ready to execute again? So I was afraid of failure. But I just felt this pull really strong that this is something that I was supposed to do. And so I said, I'm going to shelve this fear for now and let's just dial in and let's get this done. So you've been with me over the past 16 weeks as I've prepped for this race. It's been a successful prep up until 3 weeks prior to race day. I was hit with a case of posterior tibial tendonitis in my left leg, and it had me on crutches for 5 days, 3 weeks prior to race day. So there was no running for those last 3 weeks. There was some elliptical stuff, limited bike, some swim, but that was not how I had hoped that the plan would conclude. But I showed up anyway, and I had felt that, even though it wasn't the optimal situation, I felt led that, hey, God brought me down here for a reason. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to execute this thing to the best of my ability. And whatever I can't do, he'll step in and help me and carry me through. And so it was a true test of faith because I went down there not being able to really walk all that well still. I had done a bunch of PT and some massage and as much therapy as I could possibly do to try and get this leg squared away, but I still wasn't able to put like full weight on that leg. And I got the leg taped with some KT tape the day before, but I was still walking around in the expo kind of limping a little bit, just not able to put weight on it. So I was like, this is what this is going to do. So these are the cards that I'm dealt, and we're going to make this work. And whatever it takes to go to the starting line and cross that finish line is what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to find it some way. And I know that God was going to be with me and he was going to carry me throughout the whole day. So I had a feeling, I just felt it in my heart that I was like, okay, well, it hurt kind of like, at the swim and on the bike a little bit, but, getting through transition. But I was like, when it comes time to run, let's just see what it does. No expectation. So I'm going to walk you through the day. And so that was kind of the lead up. That was how it was in Expo, the day of the race. I was still a little nervous on how this is going to execute, but I knew that if God didn't heal my leg, it was going to be a really, really hard day. And it was going to be a painful day. But I was determined to finish what I started. So let's dive right on in. The conditions were really, really good, I felt, for race day. We started the day in the low 60s in the morning, and the day ended with, at around 80 degrees. I didn't feel particularly hot, but there were some people that were saying that it was a pretty hot day. But as I talk about the run, maybe that'll explain how I felt the way that I felt and the reason that I did. So we'll see about that. So let's do a little bit of summary metrics on the preparation for this. So I had a total training hours of 253 hours and 20 minutes for this race that spanned 16 weeks. That's a pretty solid input for a 70.3. Like I said, most of the training went pretty well. I was pretty conservative on the run and really hammered it on the bike and really went for it to build that muscular endurance in the swim. And I feel like, my bike and swim training went really, really well. So for the bike training. I put in a total of 106 hours and 49 minutes, so just shy of 107 hours over the 16 weeks. I don't have the mileage because a lot of my stuff is done. Some of the stuff is done on a trainer, and I don't record miles on a trainer, so it's a useless metric for me. But that's some pretty solid work. Lots and lots of big gear work, lots of cadence work in the later part of the training plan. Real race specific training. So thought that was pretty solid. For the swim, I put in almost 76.25 miles. So it was 76.24 miles in the pool. On average, there were three swims per week. On average, my weekday swims, there were 2 of them, were 3Ks. The long swim was on Sundays or Saturday, and that's pretty solid training, I think. Put in a lot of time and miles. For the run, I put in 235.2 miles on the run, and I used, as you've seen in all the other videos, it was a run walk protocol because of the issues that I have with my ankles and my feet. And like I said, I lost 3 weeks of run training at the end of the plan. So that's pretty light, I think, on the run. I would have loved to have run more, but I just couldn't. For my strength component, as you've seen from all these videos, I consistently did strength training throughout the whole plan, did some minor adjustments when they were needed. But I put in 45 hours and 20 minutes in the weight room and focusing on muscular endurance. So it's a little bit of lighter weight, higher rep counts. But some of those weeks I was still kind of lifting to failure with those high rep counts. But once it got to the point where I really felt like my recovery was hindered from getting past those sessions, I kind of adjusted my method and wasn't pushing for failure, but still kept the rep count. And I feel like I gained a lot of strength, a lot of stability during the training process, and I think that paid dividends on race day. So let's go in and let's say the swim. So the morning of was a pretty standard morning. I think transition opened up, I think it was like at 5 or 5:30. So I think that we got there like around 6. I felt that gave me enough time to kind of, get into transition, get my stuff set up without overly like sitting around and just letting my nerves kind of get to me. So the temperature in the air was nice. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't hot. It wasn't warm either. So I felt calm and was just kind of zoned out. I'm very much introverted, and I really like just listening to my music and just being in my head a little bit during that whole process, and just kind of using the music as a distraction to really kind of calm my nerves. And it worked well because I felt really calm despite not feeling healthy. And with my foot, it was already hurting still. So the transition area was set up. I have a pretty efficient transition set up, and walked down to the main area with my wetsuit. It was a wetsuit legal swim, and I can't quite remember like what the temperature was in the water, but I think it was in the low to mid 60s in the water. I was a little nervous like coming into this race with that kind of temperature because I had a sleeveless wetsuit, but I did the practice swim the day before. And that was talked about in the week 16 video where I talked a little bit about the practice swim. So I'm really, really glad I did that. I was able to get in the water, see what it felt like, see what it would feel like, because swimming in this lake, it's full of vegetation. So it's almost like you're swimming through a forest when you're close to when you're close to the shore. And that would have really thrown me off if I hadn't done that race practice. So race morning, there was no problem. I knew exactly what to expect. As I got deeper into the lake, there were no problems with that. But as you cross the lake, you get pretty close to the other side. So you do kind of see some of that vegetation again when you reach those turn buoys. But I think overall, it was a pretty decent swim. I swam it in 41 minutes and 6 seconds. It is slower than what I would have really liked to have swum, or what I thought that I could swim, because I was seeing faster times during practice. And so that comes down to about a 2 minute and 10 second 100 meter pace. So that's a little on the slow side from what I would like to have seen. I was expecting kind of like somewhere between 145 to 150 per 100 yards is what I was looking for. But I think that this is a challenging swim. Not the conditions and not the distance is not what makes it challenging for me. It might be for you, but I was pretty well prepared. And so swimming the distance wasn't going to be an issue because I got out of the water feeling fresh. Like I could have kept swimming and not had a problem. So that's the training worked. The swim training worked for me because I didn't feel tired at all when I got out of the water. I felt warmed up, but that was about it. I didn't feel tired. But the one thing that makes this swim challenging is the setup. It's this M shape. And I can say out of the 8 previous half Ironman and numerous lower distance, Olympic and sprints, 2 fulls, and this was probably one of the most difficult swims that I've ever raced. And it was all just because of the design of the swim. I know that the lake is pretty small, so they're kind of limited as to what they can do in order to get the distance in. But what I found is that when you're swimming out, ultimately what you see 4 red turn buoys at the far end of the lake. And sometimes that's what you're sighting off of are those red buoys. But they're fairly close in terms of like your line of sight. So sometimes you get turned around as to which one I'm supposed to be sighting off of. And there came a point where I got off course because I was aiming for the wrong turn buoy. And, this lifeguard came up on his paddle board and he's like, "Oh, do you need help?" I was like, No. I'm just trying to figure out like what buoy I'm supposed to be sighting off of. So I'm fine. I don't need any help. And so once I kind of got myself situated, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be looking at that buoy over there, and corrected my line. So that made it really kind of frustrating. I do turns pretty well, so I'm not too concerned about the actual execution of a turn, but trying to stay on line and sight to the proper set of buoys made the swim more difficult, and it slowed me down. I'd heard rumors that this swim was notoriously slower than others, and I can see why. So I would say I would deduct points off of the scoring of this particular race because of the swim design. I think that they've done a really good job with the resources that they have, but I would deduct points for it. So the swim, I swam it pretty solid. So if I'm looking at the distance that I was recorded from my Garmin, knowing full well that that may not be completely accurate because of the connection to satellite and you're underwater and stuff like that, it's notoriously inaccurate for open water swimming. So, but I recorded 1.18 miles. And so it was like a legal course is like 1.2 miles. So I swam it pretty clean in terms of sighting and execution of the distance. But again, I feel like I came off course a couple times, so I'm not quite sure on how my distance came in at that amount. So I'm a little skeptical. But got out of the water, felt fantastic. I felt good. Like I could have gone in and just done another loop and have been perfectly fine with it. I had left a pair of my shoes by the foot bath. So when you come up out of the water, you have to go through some really deep sand, and that really hurt because of the instability. My ankle was rolling, and it was really, really hard to get through that without just being in a lot of pain. It was not pleasant. That sleeveless wetsuit that I have from Zoot Sports, it's the sleeveless Manta wetsuit. Fantastic wetsuit. I absolutely love it. I'm so glad I invested in it. I feel incredibly fast, incredibly comfortable. It doesn't feel like constricting or limiting at all. So if you are in the market for a new wetsuit, I would give serious thought to that particular wetsuit. I don't know what the other ones are like. I do know when I was making my decision on which wetsuit to go with, the higher ends were more for like the float, and the other one, they were more for elite swimmers. So I wouldn't have been able to reap very much of the benefits from that suit. I'm not an elite swimmer. I'm a comfortable swimmer, and I feel like I can carry my own in it, but I'm by no means elite. So I felt like the Manta was going to serve its purpose. I really wanted sleeveless, and it was the only sleeveless model that Zoot Sports has at the moment. So I'm incredibly thankful that I made that investment in that wetsuit and look forward to more races in the future in that suit. But let's get back to I'm coming out of the water and I'm going up the beach and it hurts. It's not good at all. And got to the top where the sidewalk is, and I knew that there was a little foot bath that was further down the sidewalk as you round the corner into transition, and they have like little foot baths, like little plastic pools that you can put your feet in to wash the sand off, wash my feet off, and then slipped my feet into some shoes, because when you traverse transition, it's a two-tier transition. So there's a lower section and then there's an upper section of transition. So everybody is forced to go the same direction. So if you're at the bottom of transition, you don't have very far to go without your bike. So with your bike up top, you have the shorter distance. So everybody is forced to go around and all the way up to the top at some point in time, either with or without your bike. But I was in the upper tier of transition. So I knew I walked transition the day before. So I knew what the ground was going to feel like under my feet, and it was going to chew my feet up. It was not going to be pleasant. And so I put some shoes by that pool, slipped my feet into the shoes so I could get through transition with the least amount of pain possible. I got up and around and to my bike. My transition was 9 minutes and 8 seconds. I think a lot of that is spent just trying to get up out of the water and through that deep, deep sand, because I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't run through transition or anything. And it was a fairly lengthy walk through transition. So that added a lot of time, I feel, because I felt like I had a pretty efficient process of trying to get the wetsuit stripped off, which came off easy and clean, and it wasn't tight or anything. So I didn't have to like pull, slipped right off. It was perfect. Couldn't have asked for it better. I don't ride with socks, so I didn't have to worry about it. Slip my feet in the shoes, helmet on, sunglasses on, grabbed the bike, and I was out. So it was pretty efficient. It did not feel good to kind of be walking in bike shoes with my ankle. It hurt. So I really kind of had to focus on, just trying to get out of transition up to the mountain line, because you had to walk a little bit of a distance to the mountain line, get on the mount, and you're out. So that was my transition. So let's step out onto the bike now. This was the best part of my day by far. When I did a test ride of the first part of the course on the day before, when I was doing like a little gear bike check ride. So I always do a little bit of a spin on the bike, like 20 minutes or so on the bike, where I check my bike in just to make sure my gears are shifting fine and I'm in the appropriate gear when I want to mount the bike the next day. So I always make sure that I put it in an easy gear when I finish that gear check ride, so that I know that when I get on the bike, I'm in the right gear, so I can just easily kind of like push and just sit there and pedal with one leg until I get the other foot clipped in, and I'm perfectly fine. I've been fine tuning that whole process for the years, so I got it down. The first part of the bike is really, I would call it chaotic almost. There's a lot of turns. I had a feeling there was going to be a lot of people. It's closed to traffic, so kudos to Ironman for closing the roads to traffic in that section of the town. That made it really enjoyable, to where the only thing that I had to really look out for were other racers. And that's enough to really look out for, because when you come out of transition, that is a prime time for people not paying attention. They're distracted. They're like messing around with their nutrition, and they're like hitting buttons on their watch and their bike computers, and they're looking down trying to clip in. So it's a really chaotic time. And so I had to be really vigilant because I was not going to end my day early because of inattentiveness. but there's a lot of turns. And so I told myself, well, with all these turns on the roads, it's no point in like trying to get down into aero position. So let's stay out of aero until we kind of get out of the city and we get out further. That was a good plan, because I didn't feel like I was up and down, up and down, up and down as I'm making turns and things like that. And I felt way more comfortable, and my position wasn't have to be constantly adjusted. So that was a good strategy. I'm really happy with that. And once I got out on the course, I felt super strong. I didn't really pay attention a whole lot to like my power and my speed. I was just riding by feel, and I knew what level of effort I kind of wanted to exert. And I always kind of just say, okay, well, the numbers are going to be what they are. And so I rarely look at speed at all. There's just too many things that bias speed. And so I wasn't too concerned about it, but I was keeping an eye on just the time, and I would glance down and I would see power or whatever, but the metrics were there, but I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to it. I just ride by, how I'm feeling, how the effort is, mainly because Ironman bike courses can be challenging, not from the course itself, but it's navigating the people. I feel like a lot of people ride indoors a lot. And so their bike handling skills and their awareness of where they are in the road is not very well developed. Whether they just don't read the rules to triathlon, I don't really know, but there's a lot it's happened in a number of races, not just Ironman. So it's happened quite a few times this year to me where people have been riding to the left and that's blocking. So you pass to the left and you're required to, once you make that pass, you have I think it's like 25 seconds to make the pass and then drop back in to the right-hand side. And then it's on the onus of the person that was passed to drop back out of the draft zone and then retake them if they want. But a lot of people just seem to have just been riding on the left in that passing lane. And it's super, super frustrating because I'm trying to get around and I can't because they're in the way. There were times where I had to split two cyclists and ride in between them simply because the other person was just riding there. It's super annoying and frustrating. There's a couple times I had to yell out at somebody, say, hey, make your move or get out of the way. So I rode the bike course fairly hard, but within my level of fitness. And so I felt controlled. I felt in control of the effort the entire time. And I just had a blast on that bike. Other than the people that I was trying to manage and telling them to get out of my way and get back to where they were supposed to be, I'm really, really happy with my performance on the bike. I had a goal time of about around 3 hours. So I felt like around 19 miles an hour would have been sufficient for me to set me up for a good run because I didn't want to overbike it and sabotage my ability to run. But since I'd never looked at pace, really, I just rode by feel. I ended up having a average speed of 21.3 miles an hour for that course. And it's not like a flat course. There are rolling hills. There's some challenge to it. And so it's by no means what I think is a PR course, but I PR'd it. I finished in 2 hours and 37 minutes flat for the bike. I had an average cadence of 82 RPM. I'm looking at my power numbers. My average power was 203 watts, which puts me at the upper end, the really far upper end of zone 3, which is where I kind of expected where I would be. And my normalized power was 233 watts, which puts me solidly in the upper areas of zone 4. Now, whether my power zones are accurate, because I don't test a whole lot, so I know that I built a lot of fitness, so my zones may be a little bit on the low side, but I'm not going to change my zones during the training process when I'm getting close to race day because that's the effort that I've trained at. And so to me, that's not a wise decision. Even if you gain fitness, I would rarely kind of like change those power zones. Especially that close. So, if you can maybe do that test in the early stages of your training and give yourself like at the halfway point to do like an FTP test to see, if your zones are still accurate. But there's still a lot of fitness that's to be gained in the second half of the training plan because that's where all your specificity is. And so doing a test during a training block for this kind of race just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. If there's other coaches out there that have a different method, I'd love to hear kind of their method and their reasoning behind it. But since I ride by feel anyway, and my numbers are what they are, and I don't really pay a whole lot of attention until after the fact, I don't feel like I'm trying to stay within a particular area. But I knew kind of like the neighborhood on where I would be. I knew that my average power would be somewhere in the zone 3 range, and my normalized power would be in zone 4. So, but that's exactly where they were. They were just at the upper ends of them, which I did not expect. So I surpassed like my quote unquote great day goal. Is my level 1 goal, finished and had my PR by 20 minutes. So I looked back at all the previous 8 races. And so my finish time for this was 20 minutes faster than my best time so far. Even on kind of similar courses, because I have raced a few courses that are similar to this one. And yeah, it wasn't even close. So I couldn't be happier with the performance on the bike and the way that my bike training went. I think it was a good method to use for me, given my situation. I was definitely overtrained on the bike, and it paid dividends on race day without a doubt. If my day could have ended right then and there, I would have had like one of the best days, because I felt like the swim was challenging and I executed it well because I got out of the water feeling great and I got off the bike feeling great. I could have kept riding with no problem. I didn't feel tired at all when I got off the bike, which isn't usually the case because I'm usually kind of gassed a little bit. I executed my nutrition plan. Even though I rode for less time, I still got in the nutrition that I could have gotten in that time frame, because I'm looking back on the day and my carb intake for the race was around 51 grams of carbs an hour, which is right where I was training at. And so even though I had less time on the bike to consume calories, I feel like I did pretty well and still hit my goal. So kudos to Ironman for producing a great bike course, challenging but still doable with good training and good specificity training. But thank you guys. The aid stations were pretty well stocked. I did not get anything from the aid station. I was fully prepared to support myself. I don't like the nutrition that Ironman has on the course. I don't use Morton gels. I don't use the Mortal hydration. That stuff does not work for me. So I had my own gels. I had my own liquid nutrition. I had everything that I needed with me. So I was going to be self-supporting. The only thing that I did not have was just plain water. And I have a 40-ounce hydration tank that is bolted to the frame of my bike, and a straw comes up through the handlebars. So my thought was, I'm not going out on race day with that tank filled because that's 40 ounces. So that's a lot more weight to carry. So I've got 40 ounces there. I've got 2 20-ounce bottles on the back. So that's another 40 ounces. I'm a bigger guy. And so that's a lot of extra weight to be carrying on that bike, and it's going to make me work harder. It's going to rob me of speed. So I said, well, if I want water, I'm just going to grab a bottle from the aid station, and as I'm riding through, I can pour it into that tank and then drink as I want. That way I'm not coming back with almost like a full tank, because that's just not necessary. But I never got to the point where I grabbed a bottle of water. I felt like my nutrition was sufficient. It wasn't overly hot. I felt cool. I didn't feel thirsty. I didn't need a break from, kind of the sweetness of the liquid nutrition, because I do mix in some pre-workout caffeine within my bottles. So I am a heavy caffeine user. Love it. Have been for years. And I train with it and race with it. So sometimes it can be overly sweet, and sometimes my stomach can get a little sensitive, especially on longer rides, like what happened during training. But this time my stomach felt great. There were no issues with it at all. So I came in off of the bike, came into the mountain line, which I thought was might be a little sketchy because the road that they have you coming down is a big decline. So you're barreling down this hill, and then it goes right into an uphill and right to a hard left turn to go down the side street that runs along the side of transition to the mountain line. I was like, this could be a little sketchy because if you got people that are spectating, they're not really watching what's going on, and I have other cyclists I have to be managing, and then I got to make this turn, and I was like, this could be sketchy. So I kind of kept my eyes open a little bit. I went down the hill in Arrow because I didn't see any signs of danger that was lurking around. I didn't see people kind of lingering around, looking to cross the street and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty in tune with the surroundings. I've been doing this quite a while. So, and I feel like I ride enough outdoors to kind of really get kind of like that sixth sense of what people are thinking in their head. But I made the turn really efficiently, and it was going to be a little bit of a decline going down to the mountain line. So I was like, well, this people could come in to this area hot, especially if they're in arrow position, which happens all the time. They're coming up to the mountain line and they're still in arrow position. They still got their feet all clipped in, and it can just be a hot mess. And they really misjudge the speed in which they're traveling and the time it's going to take to stop that bike at that line. I've seen it so many times where people are like flying over and the back wheels of their bike are coming off the ground and they're getting hung up in their pedals, and it's always quite the show at the dismount line. But luckily, when I pulled in, I was the only biker that was there, and I already had like one foot clipped out and I just had it sitting on top of the pedal. And so I stopped right at the line, stopped nice and calm, and threw my leg over, and I felt great. But I mean, the first step that I took in those bike shoes, I could feel that ankle just scream at me. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, because it didn't bother me the whole bike ride. There were no problems whatsoever. I felt fantastic. But that first step, man, it was painful. So I was like, okay, this is what we've got going on now. So walked into transition with my bike. I had to walk. I can't run with it. And I actually use gravel bike shoes rather than road shoes. I found that the inset of the 2-bolt clips really help me in particular with walking. So the clips are recessed in, and so I don't really like those, and I have them. The look pedals with the big triangle clips that just go into the pedal until the look pedals. To me, it's a little cumbersome. It kind of hurts to walk because they're not meant for walking, right? They're meant to just clip onto the pedals and go. But once I got my gravel bike, I bought these gravel bike shoes, and I was like, man, I really like these. I mean, they're really nice shoes and really comfortable. And I said, well, I'm actually going to just make these my shoes for everything. I was like, they're perfect for me. So I changed the pedals on my bike to be the 2-bolt SPD pedals and removed my look pedals off. And I still have them like in the drawer over here just in case one day I want to put them back on. But those bike shoes are great, especially trying to get through long transition areas where you're on like asphalt and kind of like parking lot kind of stuff. When you're on the grass, the bike shoes are a little bit more forgiving because it's soft underneath of you. But man, you start running through a parking lot with bike road shoes, it's uncomfortable, it's cumbersome. Your legs are already wobbly after that many miles and that kind of high of a cadence and that high of an effort, and you're trying to run your bike through transition with everybody else around you. Man, I'm just looking for an edge, and any edge that I can find, I try and take advantage of it. And I believe that these types of shoes give me an advantage in terms of getting off the bike and through transition as comfortably as possible, the least amount of damage to my feet, my ankles. And so they're working great for me. So I racked the bike. My transition, my T2 took me 6 minutes and 51 seconds. I feel like that was a pretty solid transition for me, given how my foot was feeling, because I couldn't run through transition. I had to walk it. And, I kind of had to pay attention because unfortunately, some of the racers that were in like my rack, there was stuff just strewn everywhere. There was like wetsuits and everything else, and that is a major pet peeve of mine. So I was like, if you're going to take your wetsuit, if you're going to strip off your wetsuit, at least kind of like fold it and like try and wrap it up a little bit and put it into the back of your transition area. So if you use a towel, put that wetsuit in the far back end of the towel, out of the way for where you would put your bike shoes, and your run shoes would go next. Man, just keep that stuff out of the way. Keep your transition area nice, tight, and clean. So that way you're not trying to figure out what's yours and you're taking home stuff, you're leaving stuff, and people are tripping over your stuff as they're coming in and out. It's just common courtesy for your other racers to keep your area clean. Like I said, it's a major pet peeve of mine, and it was being done here. I had to step over a couple wetsuits, and it was just ridiculous. But it is what it is. It's part of the experience. But it took me 6 minutes and 51 seconds to rack the bike, take off the shoes, put on my run shoes, grab my vest, because I was running with a run vest that had 2 soft flasks in it with my liquid nutrition, because again, I don't take anything from the aid stations on the course, and just because my stomach doesn't tolerate it, and I don't train with it either. So I stuck with what I train with, and I got my run vest on and was walking out, and I just grabbed my bib, my race belt bib, and my hat and sunglasses, and just grabbed them in my hands and started walking, and I was putting this stuff on as I'm walking. But man, the steps that I was taking through transition, I could feel it. It was just, it's like walking on nails. That's how it feels. And there's limited flexion of the foot because of the way that the tendon wraps around that foot. It's inflamed, so you really can't flex the foot. And really, kind of like, the problem that I've got is flexing it up. So if you're dropping your heels and your toes go up, that's where I have a lot of my pain. But if you know a run stride, that's exactly what you experience. That's the toe off of the run stride. And so I have no toe off. So it's like I kind of like have to lightly hit the ground and then just try and pick my leg up without giving me that forward momentum. And so I walked through transition and got to the run course, and I tried to do it. I said, no, this is what I did. I took the first 5 minutes, like what I've been doing in training, because my training has always been, the beginning of my run is always a 5-minute walk, and then I start to execute the run walk intervals. So I said, no, I'm going to stick with what I've been doing, and I'm going to give my body a chance to reset itself. Maybe if I can like kind of work on this ankle and free up the mobility in that ankle, maybe it'll help. So I gave myself the 5-minute walk, and when the 5 minutes were up, I attempted to jog. And I said, well, I know I can't execute the 7-to-1 ratio that I want, so let's try like a 5-to-2. So I tried to run for 5 minutes, and it did not go well. I jogged the 5 minutes. I got to the end of the 5 minutes, and by the time I got to the 2 minutes, I was in a significant amount of discomfort. And so I said, well, this is the day that I have ahead of me. So I've got 13.1 miles ahead of me, and my foot feels the way it does. And I was like, I don't even know if I can walk 13 miles with this, because walking through Expo was enough to kind of like say, I just need to get off my feet because my feet hurt, my ankles hurt. And so I said, well, how am I going to do this? And so I just immediately just started praying. So I was like, well, this is what you have for me today. So let's get this done. And both you and I are going to get through this run together, because I'm going to have to lean on God on this one. And so the way that this run course is, it threw me off, because you come out of transition, you're running along the sidewalk that runs along the lake, and then it's like it brings you back. You get this switch back, and you're heading back towards transition, and you're running in this parking lot. of the venue, and I was just like, "This is super weird." And I was like, I didn't expect it. I know that it's on me to know the route, and it threw me off a little bit. I was like, I don't know if I'm running the right direction. So I said, well, this is where everybody else is running because it's a 2 loop run. So you never really know. It's like, okay, were these people they're already going around for their second loop, or am I finding people that are on their first loop? What's going on here? And so I just kept going. And I was like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. So once you get out of there, there's a little bit of an up. Once you get out of the parking lot and you get back on the road, there's a little bit of an uphill. And then you turn the corner, it's another uphill, and then it brings you out to like the main road. Now, this is where I take off points for the run. And this is something that I feel should be stated in the athlete guide, that a part of this run is going to be on sidewalks, because they had us on the sidewalk along the main road, along the sidewalk up this huge hill. And that's when it puts you into like the neighborhoods. But you have to stay on this sidewalk the entire time. And it was brutal. Sidewalks chew up my body like you wouldn't believe. My back started to tighten up, and I said, well, I'm not even at a mile yet. My foot is killing me already, and my back is tightening up. So I was like, I had to reset my mind. I said, no, straighten up, engage your core, stop, don't hunch over, don't have a slouchy position, and let's get this. So let's at least run as much as we can. And when you get to the hill, walk the hill. And that's what I did. So I got up to the hill, and then this is another thing where I kind of take off points for Ironman Florida 70.3 is that the run, I believe, in my opinion, is just really boring. They snake you through neighborhoods. And so it's like you go up one road and you're cut over, and then you come back another road. So it's like they're just snaking you through these people's neighborhood. It's super weird, but the people that were there were really awesome. The spectators, they had people like pumping music out, and people were out there cheering and things. The volunteers were super encouraging. They had a lot of young kids that were out there volunteering. So you've got that young kid energy, which is like, it's a little overwhelming to a certain extent, I feel. But it's just a boring run. I mean, yeah, I've done a lot of races and the runs have been more engaging, but this one was a bit of a mental struggle bus, I think. I don't live in a neighborhood, so I don't train in neighborhoods and stuff like that. Now, if you run in neighborhoods regularly, it might be something that is, right up your alley, you know, based on how you train, but I don't train that way. So I didn't really enjoy it, but I jogged as much as I possibly could. I did walk most of that half marathon. I had an overall average pace of 17:17, so 17 minutes, 17 seconds. I finished the run in 3 hours and 47 minutes. Um, I would, it was basically just say, okay, can I run to that light pole? And then I would jog to the light pole. And once I'd make the light pole, I was like, oh, I'm at the light pole now. Can I make it to that stop sign? And then I would make it to the stop sign, and that was basically where it would give in, and I would have to walk again. And it wasn't even walking really; it was limping. It was a noticeable limp that was taking place, and it was excruciatingly painful. There were a number of times where I got pretty emotional out there, and tears kind of started to flow a little bit because it just hurt so much, and I was just disappointed because I had built this expectation in my head that I was going to be able to run more and I was going to feel great, and this was going to be a great race, but I was not getting the race that I had envisioned in my head when I first signed up. And I think that was a bit of a more that was more of a struggle than it was like dealing with the pain, was just the disappointment that I had because my expectations weren't coming in. But that pain was a whole nother level, and cried a few times, got angry with God a few times, did a lot of praying out there. But I can talk about more of that, kind of like my insights on the mental side of this race. But that run, I think, broke me mentally emotionally, physically, and spiritually. It's not a hard run, honestly. I don't feel like it was not possible. I don't feel like it was overly challenging. Yes, it was boring. And I really, really, really wish that Ironman and the USA Triathlon would relax the rule for music to be played just on the run. I can understand it on the bike, but if they would allow runners to listen to music, it's not an unfair advantage because everybody has the opportunity to do it. As long the caveat is that you would have to use bone conducting headphones, which Shocks is a corporate sponsor for Ironman. Bone conducting headphones are one of the sponsors of the race, but yet we can't actually use the product while racing. So I think now we've gotten to the point and we've got the technology to where we can still do it safely and still hear and just relax that rule. I think it would increase the enjoyment of the run, which is by far, I think, the hardest part of the race because you're just running with you're just executing whatever's left in the tank. And I think that if we could allow music to be played, I think it would draw more people into the sport. And I think that race registrations would actually see a little bit of a bump because of that. But the rules are what they are. And there's no music. It would have definitely helped me, I think, in the distraction from the pain that I was in. It would have definitely occupied my mind because every step I took, man, I felt that nail just driving in, and it was really, really hard. So the music would have been helpful. But I made it through the first loop and saw my wife and my son, one of my sons, when I was coming through. And my son was really encouraging and he was yelling and yeah. So it was awesome. It was definitely a pick me up. I needed that at that moment. But when I saw Stephanie, I kind of just walked over to her, gave her a hug, and I was crying. I was like, this hurts so much. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can push through this. And I don't know if she heard it, but what she said to me, she's like, I know you're not going to give up. And I needed that. And so that stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? She's right. I'm not going to give up. It's not me. It's not who I am. And I'm just going to push through this however I can. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I know that I can't do it on my own. And so I had to lean pretty heavy on God during that second loop. I knew what to expect because it was the exact same loop again. So I was like, okay, well, I know where the hills are and I know I got to go up this stupid sidewalk again. And so, that is what it is. So the second loop was a little bit more, I don't want to say it was easier than the first one, but I just had more knowledge going into the second loop. But I know that like one of the kind of the theme songs to this training process was Eye of the Tiger. And the song was kind of, a friend of mine reminded me of the song and she was just like, this song is going to be really important to you during this training process and during this race. She's like, I don't know why, but I just feel like this song is going to be. And if you read the words to the song, it's definitely fitting, So it got to the point where I was on the second loop and I was coming into the neighborhood and there was this one house that had the speaker pumping out music. And I was at a pretty low point right about this time. I was struggling pretty bad. And the song that was playing, I don't know what it was, but it ended. And then as soon as I was walking up to the house, Eye of the Tiger song started playing. And that lifted my spirits. I was like, all right, thank you, God. I know that I needed that. And, that kind of lifted me a little bit. I will say on the first loop, somebody was extremely gracious enough to chat with me for a little bit. His name is James Baker. he had watched one of the previous videos, and he had commented about the run and everything. So I ended up getting a chance to meet James the day before when I showed up to the pool for some laps. I think we showed up on, I think it was that Friday swim set, but he looked completely different than he did in his profile picture. So I didn't recognize him. And I was like, what are the chances of all these people that are here with over 1,700 racers and all their friends and family that's here, and I see you, and he's standing right there at the pool where I'm walking in to do my swim workout, and he's right there. And I was like, that's awesome. So the connection that I made with him through the use of these videos has been rewarding. And so I appreciate the conversation that we had that day. It was really kind of uplifting and made me feel good. And James found me on the run on race day, which is interesting because he had no idea like what my kit would look like or anything else. But I guess he could tell like the guy that's limping, chances are that that's probably me. And so he ran up beside me and he started walking with me. He's like, "How are things going?" And I was like, "Dude, it's rough. It's rough right now." And he was encouraging, and he was on his second loop, but I was still on my first, and he looked like he was having a good race, and I was so happy for him that he was having a good race, and he was encouraging and just said, "Go ahead, get it done, man. You're doing good." And I really did appreciate the time that he took during his race to encourage me and kind of lift me up because I wasn't doing well at that point, and his words kind of lifted me a little bit. And so, James, I really appreciate the time that you did that. So thank you. Um, then on that second loop, I started to kind of question. I was like, "What is my cutoff time?" And I should know this because I've been doing this for a freaking long time. And so I was like, "Is the cutoff time 7.5 hours? Is it 8 hours? Is it 8.5?" I was like, "Crap, I don't know." And so I'm trying to do the math in my head because I'm now like 7 hours and 11 minutes into this race. And I was like, "Oh no, am I not going to make the cutoff for the first time?" I was starting to freak out, and I had like one more mile to go. I was like, "Look, just suck this up. I know this is going to hurt. Um, but we're going to run as much of this last mile as we possibly can." And so I started jogging, and I was like, "Okay, get to that light pole." I got to the light pole. I was like, "All right, now get to that mailbox." And I would get to the mailbox. And I was like, "Get to that stop sign, get to the stop sign." I didn't run the full mile, but I probably ran more of that mile than I did all the other previous 12 of the day. Um, and, I rounded that corner and I saw both of my sons up there at the top of the hill. They were yelling and screaming and encouraging, and that helped. And I came down the hill and around the corner and into the chute in that red carpet. And there's something about uh, getting on that red carpet of an Ironman branded race, man. It's something else. There have been a number of times when I raced the full in Chattanooga, and I was in a lot of pain with that race. And then once I hit that carpet, it's like all the pain just kind of like disappeared. And, I was able to like jog down the carpet. And so there's something about like just stepping foot on this red carpet. It kind of lifts you. My pain did not go away, trust me, but there's something about I'm on the carpet. And it's a little bit of a conclusion. You're cinching this thing up and you're putting a bow on it. And you got the people that are lined up along the side, and it's an incredible feeling. And I honestly, I don't know if there's very much that would compare to the finish line of an Ironman branded race with the crowd support and the encouragement, and they're all yelling and cheering, and it makes you feel like you're a rock star, even though I just finished walking a half Ironman, and I'm coming up to like 7 hours of race time, so I'm by no means elite, but it makes you feel absolutely incredible, like you're just on top of the world, and that it's that I'm being lifted up on the shoulders and you're being carted off of the field because you just scored the game-winning touchdown or whatever. That's the kind of feeling that you get from this finish line, and it's incredible. It basically is. There are no words, I don't think, that can describe the emotion that I feel when my foot hits that red carpet and you're coming down the chute, and then you hear your name called out, and I crossed the line and I finished the race in 7 hours and 21 minutes. It took me longer to do the run than it took me to do the bike. Actually, it took me longer to do the bike. It took me longer to do the run than it did to take me the bike and the swim combined. So that tells you what kind of day I had. I am by no means a gifted athlete. I am by no means an elite athlete, but God has blessed me with determination and the grit to do what's necessary to finish the task. And so that's it, man. I finished number 9, Ironman Florida 70.3, and I am thankful that I was able to toe the line and complete the race, given the situation that I had. Because out there on that run, I had really, what kind of changed things is I told God, I was like, God, if you want this sport from me, it's yours. Just take it. Honestly, I don't want this sport anymore. I'm in so much pain right now. The effort that I put in training, and the constant disappointment and things that don't go well, and I don't get to see my fitness like I feel like I have in me. Man, just, if you want this sport, you can have it. And I guess that's what he was really looking for, was for me to surrender the one piece in my life that I was probably not willing to really surrender to him, was to surrender my passion for this sport. And I don't know what this means for me going forward. I don't feel like my triathlon hobby is done. I'm still kind of processing things a little bit there, but I've not signed up for any more 70.3s as of yet. I do have one that I'm eyeballing, but I was eyeballing it before this race. So if you would have asked me while I was sitting there post race, is like, so do you want to race Ironman North Carolina again, 70.3 next year? I would have said, absolutely not. I'm done. No, I don't want this. But I think enough time has passed now to where I've kind of gotten my emotions under me, and I've gotten control of them and corralled those emotions. And so I'm still not convinced yet on what my path is, but I'm open to it, and I'll see what God has in store. But I can say that when I crossed that line, I walked up a little bit further, and they took my timing chip and they gave me a bottle of water, and they put the medal around my neck. And, I walked up a little bit further and just kind of walked over to the side to where the railing was at. And I just kind of stood there for a little bit, just soaking it in and trying to figure out what it was that I was exactly feeling. I had a lot of emotions running through me, and I broke down. I cried, and it was pretty emotional at that moment. I don't know if I was crying because of the achievement and the accomplishment, or if it's just, the end of the road kind of cry, or this is just excruciatingly painful kind of cry. I haven't quite figured out what the source of the tears were yet, but it was pretty emotional. And so I walked around. Once I kind of got my composure a little bit, I'm kind of glad that my wife and my kids weren't around, because that's not something that I kind of wanted them to see. That's something that I needed to do for me. And because I didn't want them to be worried or be concerned that, things were really, really bad, that, oh my gosh, he's sitting there and he's crying. But I got myself composed and walked around the corner, and there they were. They were standing right there, and I was thankful. Gave them all 3 of them a really big hug, and I thanked them so much for their support and their encouragement in all of these endeavors and all these races that I've done, and just the journey that it takes to get there. And, it's just as hard on them as it is on me, honestly. If you're sitting there and you're watching your loved one, somebody that you care about, and they're in excruciating pain and they're just pushing through it, it breaks your heart. man, because you don't want to see them hurt. You don't want to see them like that. But man, it tugs on the heartstrings a little bit. And I knew that. And I felt really bad that, Stephanie was feeling that way, but wasn't much I could do about it. But I do thank all three of them, Mason, Braden, and Stephanie, for their constant support and their encouragement over the years for this process. But that's it, man. That's Ironman Florida 70.3 from 2025. Thank you to Ironman for the gift of this race and for this experience, honestly. And so just some of my insights, and this is something that I want to say. I've been thinking about it for the past week, and I can say that the word that I was given for this race by somebody that I trust, they said, this race is going to be a crescendo for you. And I've been trying to figure out what this word meant in terms of this situation. I know what the word crescendo means, but what it meant for this. And initially I thought, well, this means that this is like the pinnacle. I'm reaching a plateau, and I'm finally going to get a good race, and God's going to bless me with a fantastic performance. And so this is my race. He's going to redeem all the time that I've lost from these surgeries and this downtime, and that I'm going to come back strong. But that is not what it meant. It's what I hoped it meant. But at the end of the day, that's not what I got. I have learned now that over the years, I've regularly prayed to God for good performance, and I've prayed for His blessing and, in terms of healing my body and all this. Honestly, I know now that I need to stop praying for that. I need to stop praying for the performance and having a good race, because that's all self-focused and it points inward. I need to start praying for something that points outward and said, God, whatever it is that you have for me for this race, give me the race that you want me to have. Give me the race that I need to have to grow in whatever area that you need me to grow in, whether that means I need to grow as a coach, as an athlete, as a Christian, as a man, avenue or area of my life that needs growth. Let this race be the source of that growth, and you give me the race that you want me to have. That's what my prayer needs to be. And it's a challenging prayer because, I want to perform well, and I want others, I'll be honest, and I want others to think that I'm a good athlete, and, and they see my performance and they're impressed. Who doesn't want that, But I'm learning that I'm trying to set that aside and say, maybe that's not what's in the cards for me. And I got a text message from one of my athletes just the other day, and it kind of solidified it for me. And he kind of knew what was going on a little bit, but we haven't seen each other in, a while, because he doesn't live in the US. But he's here for Christmas, and he sent me a text, and he said, man, Ironman is so inspirational because it's not about the 3-hour finishers at a 70.3. It's all those others that finish late in the day, and they had to dig so deep and find that next level. Those people that are finishing at 6 hours, 7 hours, 7.5, man, they're pushing the later stages of the race, man, because that's where the inspiration is at. And that just spoke volumes to me, man. That really just said, maybe that's what my journey is. Maybe I'm not the kind of guy that's going to get these, 3-hour finishes. Maybe it's the struggle that I go through is what inspires somebody. And if that's the case, then I'm willing to go through the struggle. I'm willing to sacrifice that if it means that it inspires somebody else to step up and do something that they never thought that they could do, where they had to truly sacrifice and find that next level. Man, but it's humbling and it's hard as an athlete with my kind of personality to be willing to do that. But I feel like the word crescendo for this particular race honestly meant that I was going to be changed. And I can honestly say, and I think it's been through the process of making these videos, even though I really didn't want to do this video series, I still felt the pull and the draw to do it. And so I committed to it and to be completely open and vulnerable to you guys out there. And I can say that the process of training for this race and the actual race day itself changed my life. It has opened up doors in my mind and in my emotions that have been closed for a really long time. I have new insights into things that I never knew before. And I feel like my faith has been deepened despite the fact that, my ankle was not healed, even though I've said on several of these videos that I believe that, God was going to heal my ankle. And when it came time to run, it was going to be fine. But I got kind of angry with God during that run and said, look, man, where are you? Why did you not step in and fix this ankle when I needed you to do that? I said, I've been vulnerable. I've been telling all these people about my faith and that you were going to heal me. And I look like an idiot. And I felt immediately convicted. It's just like, it's not about you. I don't have to prove, he doesn't have to prove that he can heal me, and that he doesn't have to prove himself that to others. He doesn't have to say, I'm going to do this so that you don't look stupid. That's not who he is, and that's not why I have faith. So I felt convicted on that one, but I think that it's completely natural for us, for people of faith to have those moments where we get angry with him, and I think that's fine as long as we're listening to what he's going to say afterwards and what he kind of puts on your heart. But I feel like this training process, the fear of failure, and to actually have that quote unquote failure materialize is humbling. In my opinion, the 7-hour finish time that I had is a failure based on the expectations that I had and the way that I saw this race going. But anytime that you can toe the line and cross it is a success. It's not a failure. And even if it doesn't meet your expectations, there is something to learn from it. And this race and this training process has been a learning experience, and it has deepened my faith. It has opened my eyes. I have new insights into training methods that I didn't have before, that I didn't appreciate before. So there's growth there as a coach. There's growth as an endurance athlete, where it's like, man, that's the way that run went, but you still found it somewhere to dig in and get it done. So as an athlete, that is bolstering, it's uplifting. It gives you another experience to draw on some other day when things don't go well. And I can immediately go back to that race and say, yep, that was another day that something didn't go well, but I dug in and I found it. I went to the well and drew that water out and I finished. So if I did it then, I can do it now. And those experiences are worth their weight in gold. And would I've liked to have finished with a better time? Absolutely. I think my goal time was I had a finish time of somewhere between 6 hours and 6 minutes, which would have been a PR, all the way to 6 hours and 55 minutes would have been like my pretty rough day. So I missed that. I missed that goal, and it didn't materialize. I didn't get the run performance that I envisioned, but I did it. And with an ankle I had to tell myself during that run, and this is kind of what changed my mindset when I was out there, was that, man, here you are. You're in the half marathon of a 70.3 Ironman, and you were on crutches 3 weeks ago for 5 days, and you could not walk without the assistance of crutches. You couldn't go to the gym without the assistance of your kid to help you get the dumbbells off the rack so that you could lift weights and still do something. You couldn't do any of that stuff by yourself just 3 weeks ago. You were just walking through the expo yesterday, limping through because it still is not 100%. But here you are in the half marathon of a 70.3, and you're getting it done. And you know you're not going to quit. And honestly, when that clicked in my head, the whole race just kind of turned, and it was like just kind of like a slap in the face a little bit, kind of woke me up and put things in perspective. So I stopped wallowing in the fact that I couldn't run, and I started to relish the fact that I was like, you know what, I couldn't even walk 3 weeks ago. So here I am doing this. I was like, this is progress. So no, it's not a failure. Just stop just stop feeling sorry for yourself and just dial it in and get this done. So this race, yeah, I can definitely say it has changed my life. And thank you so much to Ironman for the gift of this experience. Yeah, they gave me the race, but I mean, it's the journey through the race that has been eye-opening, and the race is just like the capstone, man. It's just like it's the final piece of the puzzle that I've been putting together for 16 weeks and just slowly putting in pieces here and there so that the picture would kind of develop. But thank you to Ironman for their wonderful and beautiful gift of this race, and um, I I thank God for getting me through this. I could not have done it without him and without the strength that he has given me, without the wisdom that he gave me to build a plan to prepare for it, because I believe that the swim plan and bike plan that I had set me up for a good half marathon, or at least a chance at one. And maybe the fitness in those two areas allowed me to walk better during that half marathon. So there's that. So I just want to truly thank you guys for tuning in for this series. If you've watched all the episodes, thank you so much. Even if you've watched one episode or just part of one episode, just thank you. Thank you for taking the time and sharing this journey with me. Greatly appreciate it. And I do not take it for granted. I do not take any starting line and any finish line for granted, because it can be taken from you at any moment. These things are not guaranteed for us. And so you have to relish the opportunities. You have to hold on to those experiences and really take advantage of them and learn what you can learn, experience what you can experience, and then apply it going forward. Because, man, I've been in that situation where I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back to doing this ever again. And it felt like a part of me had died. And the fact that I could go in and do this race and complete it under this scenario really speaks to my heart and his provision and his blessing to get me through this. I want to thank the support of my wife. I could not have done this without her, and I don't want to do it without her. She has been by my side every step of the way. You know, race day was just as hard for her emotionally. She's had some spiritual growth during this process, because, I mean, when we got married, we just got married like 3 years ago. So I haven't really done an Ironman or done a race of this caliber while we've been married. I did one when we were first dating, and so she kind of got a little bit of an experience, but she didn't really see like the day in and day out kind of process. So this was a first for her. And, you know, she took over the food prep process and really kind of tried to make my life as easy as possible with everything else that I had going on with the training and the videos and the coaching and the podcasts and everything else. I cannot thank her enough, and can't thank God enough for giving me such a incredible partner in life, that she's been completely selfless during this. And so thank you. Thank you to my two kids that came, for Mason and Braden. You guys have been there almost every race. I mean, you guys grew up doing this, and so it really means a lot now that you guys are getting older, that you still kind of come out and do this and support me throughout the training and everything else, all the long hours that I spend, you know, doing my training, it takes away from my time with them. And so I don't take that for granted. And I want to thank them for the sacrifices that they put in just as much as I do. I do want to thank my teammates. So I'm a member of Team Zoot. So I want to thank the encouragement that I've received from a number of my fellow Team Zooters. So thank you guys from the Mid Atlantic region and from the Southeast region. Thank you guys so very much for the words of encouragement, for the support that you showed me, and listening to episodes and stuff, and following along. I thoroughly love being a member of this team. I'm not a big team guy, but for some reason, this team just kind of clicks with me. And I absolutely love it. And your encouragement is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much. For everybody else, the support that you have shown me, thank you for listening, for downloading, and just following along, man. I really appreciate it. And so I'm going to close this off. So this has been the Ironman Florida 70.3, an endurance athlete's journey. And I've been your host, Coach Justin. I'm head coach and owner of Tabula Rasa Racing. And I thank you for following in this journey. And hopefully there will be more videos coming soon with more training, more tips and keys, things. Man, be sure to subscribe and don't miss out on stuff. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and still kind of produce content for you guys to help you along in your process and in your journey. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to the Tabula Rasa Racing YouTube channel, as well as the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. You can find that on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, or whatever, and it's on Buzzsprout. So thank you guys, and I'm signing off. Like I said, I've been your host, Coach Justin. Thank you guys for following along, and happy training, everyone. See you next time.